Hey everybody, welcome to Mental Health Matters. This is Tom Duff with St. Louis Counseling, Executive Director and licensed clinical social worker. So, as I always say, I'm that therapist at heart. You're listening to Mental Health Matters, and as always, we try to have conversations and dialogue about breaking down mental health, making mental health okay to talk about around the dinner table, and also figuring out how mental health intersects into all realms of our life. And everyone has mental health. It's just one frame, one part, one channel of our overall health. And so, as always, let me also put the plug in. Subscribe to us. Share this podcast. Get the word out there. Tell somebody about that. You can find our information at stlouiscounseling.org. That's stlouiscounseling.org. You can also find us on any place where you download a podcast. You can find us as well, too. So Mental Health Matters. So as always, we have another awesome guest on, kind of a local celebrity, I'm going to say, whether you realize it or not. But we have Paige Walden-Johnson on with us. And today, we're going to talk about from dance to nonprofits, addressing our community issue of St. Louis violence, right? So we're going to cover a lot of ground. But welcome, Paige. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. So, a coworker and I were talking, and she came across what you guys are doing with your nonprofit, and so we got to get Paige on the podcast. And sure enough, you're like, "Sure, I'll do it." And so I'm like, "Oh, that made it easy." So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited. But first, I always like finding out about people. That's the therapist in me, right? So dance. I can't dance. People tell me anybody can dance, all right? Because it's just dance. You just dance. But when did you realize you were good? Like, when did you realize, like, I really like this and I can do something with this?
Honestly, I've been dancing since I was 5 years old, so it's really all I've ever known. My mom put me into dance class after we tried softball, and I was terrible at it. She goes, "Oh, let's try some cute little shoes." And every single part of my life has been all around movement. Focusing on movement. I still played soccer, I still was in student council, but when I always had to focus my attention, dance was always won over the other activities. I eventually went to school for dance at Webster University and continued my career growing to be a professional dancer, just checking all the boxes that needs to happen until I decided that wasn't the path I needed to be on.
So dance, when it comes to mental health, and there's all these different things we can do to improve our own mental health. Some of those things are free. We talk about, an increased dopamine in the brain when we listen to music, right? But dance is so much connected into just our inner selves. Can you talk maybe a little bit about how dance maybe can be so good for mental health, right?
Absolutely. When you are moving your body, it is a way, of course, the scientific chemicals in your brain that are being released, but also it's a way to notice your body. What are you feeling in your body? And you start realizing, okay, what hurts? And like, ooh, how can I move it to make that better? It's really a great way to get in touch with yourself. And you can express every type of emotion through dance. You can be sad. There have been days I've been so upset, and I was like, I just gotta share it through movement. No one needs to see it. No one needs to tell me it's good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. It's just for me, and that's it.
And of course, it's a great form of exercise, right? Which also helps your overall mental health,
Absolutely.
your dopamine, you're moving. Well, and the way you're describing that kind of makes me think of just mindfulness, feeling where you're at in the moment, in that movement. Like you said, when you're moving, you can feel like, oh, this part, is tense or isn't flexible.
Yeah, often, I am someone who has struggled with mental health. I have anxiety, panic disorder, and it is one of the few things that have helped me reconnect and ground myself when I am not connected to my body, when I am not connected to my mind or the environment around me. So it has saved me several times.
And you mentioned grounding, which is a huge thing, when it comes to overall mental health, people dealing with trauma, and even sometimes when, people are dealing with a trauma, they have to have that ability to bring them back into the present moment if they have like intrusive thoughts. So dance would be an art form that could truly help a person in that realm as well. So,
I've always noticed that when I am not feeling well and my anxiety is at its peak, or I'm not moving, I'm not dancing in the kitchen, I'm not tapping my feet at the grocery store or the bank, I can notice how well I'm doing based on my subconscious movements.
uh-huh. So and that comes back to, so I'm a big believer in this concept of emotional intelligence and know thyself.
Yeah.
And so dancing truly in movement and just being, I guess, one with yourself in some regard, and just recognizing that is a huge concept that makes such a difference in your own world, in your own relationships and things of that nature. Just knowing yourself. So that's
Right.
cool. That's cool. You can do that.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing about your own kind of world as well too, of what you deal with at times. So not everyone will share at times. So thank you for that. So.
Absolutely. If that can help someone else, I'll share my story.
So speaking of stories, I think your story on the formation of your nonprofit, CommUNITY Arts STL, and capital Unity in the community, which I love that part of the logo and the name. I think that has a pretty remarkable story and where you guys kind of came together and start and where you're at now. But maybe can you tell us a little bit how that all came to fruition?
Back in February of 2017, I got a text message in the middle of a dance lesson, and it said, Rain has been shot. Lorraine Stippick, as known as Rain, endured 8 gunshots to the torso. And she was rushed to the SLU hospital in the middle of the night. That next morning, all I knew that was she was in the hospital. She was in surgeries. I didn't know from moment to moment if she was still with us. And through that, I struggled with, okay, how can I help the situation? I wasn't a doctor that was able, I wasn't able to be in the room. I wasn't able to give thousands of dollars to pay off her medical bills. But when I started talking to more artist friends, what I could do was put on a small production and help offset the costs. Only a couple months in, she was accruing bills to the millions at that point. So they were frantically trying to figure out, okay, yes, the insurance covers this much, but there are so many other costs that aren't being covered. And when we created this small concert with just friends of Rain's, it grew out of the space we were in. We were originally in the Satori Theater in Midtown, which is not too far here from the Dotzac here.
From Midcoast Media, which is where we record our podcast, but go ahead.
Yeah. And it was like a month before the show when the director came up to me and said, I don't know how we're going to fit everyone into this theater. Not even audience members, just the organizations and the artistic companies that joined us on that. There just wasn't enough space.
Wow.
So I was so thankful that he connected me with Chris from the Kranzberg Arts Foundation. And they, within a month, made space for us for our 2 weekends. We were at the Marcel Theater and also the Grandel Theater, spanning 2 weekends. And we invited Madco, Ashley Leanne Dance Company. We had a St. Louis Ballet principal dancer create a film and show his work, St. Louis Symphony players. I performed, and we also invited many universities to have students come on to not only at this point dance and move and create and perform for Rain, but it was now evolving into dancing for the city because of my trying to figure out why this has happened. I talked to FBI agents, I talked to doctors, surgeons, organizations, anyone who would be willing to talk to me, and I, of course, found out the disparities that are in our city and that have been here for hundreds of years.
Forever, yeah.
And it's not until someone close to you gets affected until you realize it's an issue. And I hope that this organization that I am growing, I am able to get out into across all the communities And so everyone can see what is happening because I went to Webster University. Webster Groves is known to be a very safe neighborhood, this beautiful little bubble, a lovely place to live. But only a community over, it's a war zone. So that's where we are.
Pretty remarkable. And how's Rain doing now?
She is thriving. Just this past Sunday, she performed in our 3rd annual concert. It was her first time back on stage since the shooting.
Wow.
And she performed a solo alongside performers from the Angel Band Project, which is another organization that uses music to heal for domestic violence survivors. So there were domestic violence survivors singing and live and playing live alongside to a gun violence survivor.
Wow.
So just, I still get chills.
Yeah,
I
the
still
message
get chills.
behind that is remarkable.
It was so, like, the room was filled with electricity and hope and pain and all of the things in this one room, and I was more than inspired to continue my work after that night.
So your organization then, you know, I saw like 3 kind of keywords on your website, you know, communicate, educate, heal. So how do you see the organization doing that? Explain a little bit about, you know, using dance, using, well, just a collaboration of art within the community.
My preferable communication is my body, dance. I'm starting to learn how to talk with my words now, as you see.
You're doing great. Yeah.
Thank you. But not everyone communicates like that. I've heard other people communicate their trauma through a guitar or painting or a poem or a rap, anything. So I want to have all of the types of communications with art that can go deeper than words, really plug into your emotions and connect with people about the issues in our city. So that would be the communicate portion, really making sure that we are spreading the word, spreading the awareness through our artistic endeavors. As for communicate, educate, that was a huge part of my learning. I needed to understand what is contributing to the violence before I could even say that I was trying to attack it. So I jumped into the Violence Prevention Commission. I snuck myself in there with all these surgeons and doctors and police officers and, you know, little dancer right over here.
Who just danced by us?
Right,
What's going
exactly,
on?
tapping her toes through the meetings. But the more that I was able to understand the statistics, the data collected, then I was effectively being able to attack the problem. There are a lot of organizations out there that have a good heart and want to do great things for the community, but don't necessarily have the research or the evidence-based practices to go behind it. And especially right now where there's a lot of reevaluation of the Prop S funds,
Yes.
I want to make sure my program is actually making a difference. And if I'm able to talk to the right people and have the right support and the right information, then I know we will make an impact. So education, huge, huge part. And that also goes with the mental health education. Communities, I'll specifically point out Alive and Well communities. They are trauma-informed, free classes that can really help you sift through the symptoms that people often label as misbehavior. I've been labeled as misbehavior because I can't sit still, and I've only had a small amount of trauma. For kids who are living in the streets and hearing gunshots every day, of course they're not 100% in school. And kicking them out of school for detention or expulsion, like, that doesn't fix anything. So the education portion is so, so important. We want to find as many organizations that can help us with that. That would include St. Louis Counseling. You guys would be a great voice.
I got my wheels a turning already as you're talking.
How do we go about this? And then heal. The arts. I am a living proof that the arts can heal. I personally have gone through suicidal spouts. And without the people who have kept me here and without my expressive outlets, I wouldn't be here without art. Most of my dance time at Webster, most of it was movement, and it was a way for me to jump into my personal issues with still the safe barrier of art and let it unconsciously filter through my body. That works well with movement, but that can also go with music. Just the vibrations of movement is so healing. I've recently started learning how to play the ukulele. Whenever I'm feeling terrible, I play the ukulele really terribly. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's still music, right?
Yeah, you hear these chords, and there's so much research behind music being so healing, and there are so many ways art can be plugged in. So this is truly for everyone.
Truly. So, okay, question. There's a therapist in me, right? So when, like you said, you were at Webster and you were starting to realize how this movement, this dance you can connect to this inner. Was that something that, did somebody, kind of inform that to you? Was that just this like epiphany, or was it kind of like just an exploration type thing?
I would say it's exploration. As a dancer, we always talk about mindfulness. How is your, checking in with your body. And as I've gotten older and more mature, I'm able to really listen better. But I had great mentors at Webster. I had Becca Reed, who was she was a professor there, and she walked me through this. She connected me with therapists who also walked me through this. All of this process, in addition to art, I did see therapists to get me through and get the proper medications, so I'm able to function well. This also goes with understanding all of the pieces of making a well body. Don't eat crap. Drink water. Make sure you sleep. I found out I have to have 8 to 9 hours of sleep. That's not everyone, and that's okay. And I can't stay up late. I like to get up early. It's just really step by step, day by day, learning something new about yourself, if that's through drawing, looking in the mirror, doing a little dance, or just journaling.
Well, and for a long time, I used to work with younger kids, and then I'm not an art therapist by any means, but the things they would draw, and then just taking time to look at that. So, you mentioned, all the different types of art and how healing, and to get the message out there. Like you said earlier, like, you've always used movement as a way of expression. Now you're talking more and everything, and not everybody has the ability to put things into words, but probably there's some type of communication they have that they can put, into understanding. And so I think that's where I think a lot of times people don't even realize, the ability to just move can be expressive enough to be able to get something out.
Oh, yeah, and that doesn't even necessarily need to be a dance. If that means take a walk, movement is movement. And if you can just get yourself to move, get out of bed some days, that is so huge. I've had so many times my husband has had to drag me out of bed, just walk around the room, look outside, like little things like that.
So yeah, it's kind of that interference to how you're feeling, to get it up, get it moving, and get going. With CommUNITY Arts STL, the healing part, right? You mentioned just that past performance with somebody dancing, somebody singing, connecting it to the St. Louis violence issue. And of course, there's violence and crime across, everywhere, right? Yeah. Everywhere. We're surrounded by it. But here in St. Louis, we know lately that's getting a lot more attention because kids have been hurt, killed. And so, of course, sometimes it takes a child being hurt for us to bring some attention to something. But as you also said, sometimes it takes somebody then you're willing to look into it more. And I think not St. Louis, people in general, right, can be on the outside going, what's wrong? Why would people just shoot people? Well, I don't understand it. And until you take the time to start figuring it out and realizing what would you do if you grew up in that environment.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Absolutely. The violence that is erupting and that actually has been here for quite some time is historical, systemic, designed. We are always questioning, why is this happening? And as you start looking at the data, as you start looking at all the research, you go, well, of course they're doing this. They don't have any other choice in the environment, in the community they are in. And just shedding some light on those empathetic perspectives can help the entire city start working together.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty important word. You know, empathy. We don't. We generally. I think a lot of times people will be a lot quicker to judge somebody than actually put themselves in someone's shoes, because that's not comfortable, or you don't know how to. You know, as the other side, you don't know how to like go. I don't. Someone that maybe is from another section of the city that has no crime, have grew up in the stereotypical perfect household, right? Has no clue, like, what's it feel like to be hungry? And to go a whole day without eating, not because you're fasting, because you have nothing. And until you can take the time to do that, or willingness to do that, then a lot of these systematic things will stay in place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you see CommUNITY Arts STL, CommUNITY Arts STL, where do you see it going? What's your vision? What's your hope?
Oh, there are so many places it can go. I've already had several meetings with different organizations that are like, I don't know what we're going to do, but I want to do something. But some of my big ideas, like my wishes, I want to have a bus for our community arts bus program. Our community arts bus program offers transportation for youth between the ages 8 and 24 who have been assaulted, stabbed, or shot and have entered the hospital system, gone through the Life Outside of Violence program through mentorship, and then referred to us. So after the immediate needs are met and the immediate healing that needs to be met for a victim or survivor, we provide a healthy lifestyle, an avenue to express the pain that is continually cycling through the body and mind. And right now it's my red Chrysler van. I'm fitting as many kids in my car as I can. And we provide the transportation. Organizations already have scholarships and tuitions available, but they're just going to waste because kids can't get there.
Wow.
So we're working with organizations that already have these systems in place to give, and we're taking down a barrier.
It's a huge barrier.
Transportation always comes up in St. Louis conversations, and especially kids that are being affected. They're in communities where the parents either have several kids, single parents, working crazy hours just to make ends meet. They don't have time to stop what they're doing and get their kid to an art class because food is the more important thing at this moment.
That paycheck coming in is very important.
Yes.
Well, and addressing that transportation barrier is huge. I mean, that's what we constantly see in any needs assessment, whether it be rural or urban. You know, because a lot of times it's like, well, there's a bus system in town. You know, there's a bus system. Why can't? Well, it's not that simple.
It's
you
not
know,
safe.
Yeah, not safe.
It's not accessible to everyone. It doesn't. They just removed a whole bunch of stops recently. So it's going to be even harder going forward.
Which means you might have to walk through maybe a couple different neighborhoods to get to the place to catch the bus or the train that you,
Unsupervised, most likely.
Yeah. And what was the age range with your Chrysler van?
Yeah.
What's the age range you're covering?
8 to 24.
8 to
We're
24.
paralleling it with the Life Outside of Violence, how they've built their program, so we can just be an additional resource to the youth that they serve.
Awesome. And then other initiatives that you're wanting to move forward when it comes to CommUNITY?
The other initiative that we had a pilot for, originally called Expressive Arts Anonymous, came from the noticing of the trauma and pain in the police, emergency responder, teachers, social workers, therapists that are day in and day out receiving secondary trauma, seeing the violence and going home and having to process the loss of a child who has been savagely killed in the streets. This came from witnessing 2 young kids dying on a motorcycle and seeing the emergency responders just another day's work, you know, piling these bodies in. I'm like, there has to be some sort of residual emotional, you know, work going on in their bodies. They may be pushing it down to get their job done, but
it's there.
It's there, and it's manifesting through alcoholism. There's high rates of suicide with these professions. And then on top of all of that, you can't even show that you have a weakness in these professions. One, you have to look impervious to the community. Second, okay, well, I'll go on probation or whatever to take care of my health. Well, now my family doesn't have food. Now there's no paycheck coming in. And how long does it take to take care of mental health? I mean, I took a year, and that's just one step.
Yeah, exactly.
So how are we able to provide more support to these professions that are day in, day out in the streets working on this violence issue so they can not get burnt out and not kill themselves?
Yeah, exactly. And then connecting them back into, you know, when we talk about, you know, I was just sharing beforehand, my little one is starting dance right now, you know, and who knows how many first responders took dance or some type of arts at a young age, and then connecting them back into that maybe time of their life can be a very healing process as well too, or relaxing or whatever it may be, you know. So allowing them that opportunity, pretty amazing stuff.
We have 3 vital members in our team, varying from board member to just volunteer. We have a police officer who uses her spare time in aerial dance to just keep herself moving. And I mean, of course, she pairs it with therapy, but it's another venue of positive expression. So she is a vital part of understanding the police culture and how we can start helping that department. Then we have a social worker who just relocated to Children's Hospital, and she was a dancer as a kid. She went to school for dance, and now she's day in, day out seeing these cases, and how she copes with it is going to take dance class. And then we have Lydia Wood, who's I believe she's at Barnes, and she is an ER trauma nurse, and she paints. She is a fantastic artist. And she says when she gets home from the weekend and all this bloodshed, she comes home and draws and paints. And that is how she was able to continue going and not give up and not burn out. So I know it's powerful. I just want for those who are interested to try it out. And we're still we're reevaluating the program. Our pilot program, we didn't have people show up. That could be location, that could be time. There's so many factors. So we are working and talking with SLU Hospital. I'm connected with 911 Rebound, which is a emergency responder mental health care organization. But I want to talk to anyone and everyone who has a interest or background in something like this, so we can formulate something that works and formulate something that is specific to these professions.
Yeah, that's, you talk about secondary trauma too, you know, as you were talking, it made me think of, you know, we know police officers at times, you know, gets a lot of bad press, you know, and sometimes it's because of 1 or 2 individuals, and then, you know, police in general get labeled. And if you just think about if your profession, you know, was in the news every single day and like police are bad, police are this, like if that was an accountant, accountants are awful, you know, and just that's trauma by itself. I mean, that's, you identify as a police officer, you know, first responder, and then you're sitting listening to the news and you're listening to, yes, something bad happened that maybe involved an officer somewhere else, but then you're getting labeled into that as being just as a bad person. I mean, I joke about an accountant, but you don't see stuff like that. Some accountant embezzled somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then let's just go after them and put them on,
Yeah.
they would feel a different way too, I imagine.
Absolutely. One of the main factors that come up in every violence conference or initiative, healthy police and community relationships is a huge preventative factor. We know St. Louis does not trust their police, but what steps can we take as a community and the police force so we can bridge that gap, heal that gap? Yes, both sides are hurting. Yes, both sides are causing hurt. How can we move forward with that?
Yeah, a much more asset-based approach than deficit-based approach.
We're all in this community.
Exactly.
We're all here. We want the same thing. A lot of this processed with me through the Stockley verdict. 2018.
I think so.
I marched in the streets. I was out there protesting against the police, and it took me a second to look at the movement in the streets and then the barriers between the police officers and looking at both sides and going, we are all hurting.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it can. We are all hurting. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading something yesterday, 9/11 was yesterday, right? And they were talking about how at that point, right after it happened and maybe for a month afterwards, America was unified. There was no Republicans and Democrats. They were all the same mission and they were going to come together. And then so often we just find ourselves get away from that, and we just allow the deficits to come in and the sides to come in. And yeah, I mean, if we approach things with a whole different angle, maybe change can start occurring. But yeah. But see, now I'm getting kind of fired up talking to you.
I'm so fired.
Yeah.
And we have to get more people fired up. We need the whole city fired up.
Yeah.
No more complacency. No more going thoughts and prayers. No more of that. Let's move forward. Let's actually do something. There are so many amazing initiatives that are doing work. And if you take the time to look at them and support them and just take a second to learn why this is happening, going back to education, then we can move forward.
Yep, exactly.
No more putting a blind eye, no more ignoring because it makes you feel uncomfortable that someone else is hurting. I want everyone in the city to be uncomfortable. I want everyone in the city to be angry and fired up to make a change.
And that's what it takes sometimes,
Absolutely.
And, when we look at how to do that, and, you mentioned, nonprofits earlier, we're both nonprofits, and it's like getting us on the same page as well, too, and then looking at, because first of all, and I've got several colleagues who believe the same thing. There's plenty of work to go around for us in the nonprofit world, So, any silos we need to break down. We need to collaborate and, figure out where we can spread out. We don't always need to be condensed in one single area because we think that's where all the issues are. The issues are everywhere. So it's like, how do we spread out? How do we collaborate? How do we bring different disciplines together, And I think you're a great example of that, from dance and the arts and healing and what that can provide in conjunction with some other service. You put them all together, then you're wrapping around the person. And that's a lot of times when we talk about all this systematic stuff, that's where I get going, is like, we got to wrap around, one person at a time, which then equals the neighborhood, which then equals the community, which then equals the region. But it's like, it can be done. It's a long process, right?
Yeah, and the more that I'm working in this field and learning about the other nonprofits here, you mentioned the word siloed. Siloed comes up so much. Everyone's working towards the same thing, but with a fraction of the resources, fraction of the money, fighting over the same money, and that obviously isn't working.
Yep.
So my hope is that Community Arts Festival, our yearly event, would be a place for the arts community, the public health, the public safety community, all coming together under one roof and working together. But my year-round focus would be focusing on not only our programming, but plugging into the STL area Violence Prevention Commission. That is the one place I would love to direct people to learn more, learn what organizations are on it, and if you want to get involved, we are always looking for more volunteers and support in any way. We'll take you. We'll find, there's a way to plug you in.
Awesome. And then you can find St. Louis Violence Commission? Wait.
Violence Prevention Commission.
Violence Prevention
They're
Commission.
on Facebook.
Facebook.
They got a website. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
That's fine. It's called Google, right?
Yeah,
you put
Google
those
it.
words in, it'll be there, right?
St. Louis Area Violence Prevention Commission. And there's several committees. There's a quarterly committee that you can always come in and just learn about what's going on. But that is the one effort that I have found where everyone truly is coming together.
And then you mentioned your festival, right? Did you guys just have that?
This past weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. So then it'll be this time again next year, right?
We'll have some restructuring. We'll definitely have the concert again next September. I think that's a great time to do it. One thing that we are discussing is moving the free festival with the resources to the beginning of the summer.
Okay.
So families and kids have resources before it gets hot.
Yeah, kicking off
And
the summer.
no school. Having these resources as kids are going back to school is almost
Okay.
not as it's still necessary, but I think we can do more right before it gets hot.
Well, we'll look forward to that
Yeah.
too. I'm pretty intrigued of some of what you're talking about in regards to some involvement there. So I'm gonna take you back a little bit, right, to dance.
Okay.
All right. When it comes to, there's people that that don't totally, and even myself, right, to be able to express myself in that way, right? Talk about, because you don't need to go anywhere to do it, even, right?
No.
But okay, so two questions. One, if someone is wanting to start to get some initial training or just guidance, right? And maybe it's because they're wanting to heal. So one, where could they go?
Central Studio in the Central West End on 5617 Pershing Avenue is a perfect place for ages 0 to 100. There is movement, there is a youth dance program, there is a full adult dance program for a complete beginner to a professional. There is also gyrotonics and Pilates, which is a fantastic way to get, that's more of a rehab, and also keeping those who have a struggle with moving, like seniors or people with injuries, to rehabilitate their body. And I've used Pilates as my healer. After Rain was shot, I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to get in a dance class. I just couldn't. It was kind of tied, dance was tied into the sickness and the healer position at the same time. So I took a step back, started doing Pilates, and that is another wonderful way to get connected with your body, notice what's going on, and how to make your body feel good. If your body doesn't feel good, your mind can't feel good.
Yep, totally connected,
So
right?
Central Studio is a fantastic place, and we bring anyone and everyone who wants to come in. Yeah, it's truly a place for everyone.
So then for a person that wants to try it, right, and they're like, oh, I can't dance, I'm going to look stupid if I go in there, and how would you convince them to give it a try?
I look stupid in class every day. You're gonna you can be as stupid as you want, because I am the unprofessional dancer doing cartwheels in ballet class.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I am wiggling my shoulders. It doesn't matter which class you're in. Everyone is here so scared that everyone is worried about themselves, that they're so focused on themselves, no one sees each other. So, and the great thing is that Central Studio is so flexible. It has Zumba, ballet, tap, jazz, salsa, tango. If you don't find a class that you don't particularly grab to right away, try a different one. There's a ballet class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's a different group of people. You know, maybe the Monday class you just vibe with, or different teachers. Every teacher there, dance instructor, Pilates instructor, every employee there is so welcoming and healing. And as soon as you walk through those doors, you will feel it.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That says a lot right there.
Absolutely.
So the culture, the vibe, it's there.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's funny. Yesterday I was going through Twitter, just going through there looking, and I saw this post. So Chris Duncan, he was a baseball player here, and he just recently passed away. He was like only 38 because of a brain tumor, right? And so his wife had posted this picture that said, "Missing you. Here's us dancing after his last chemo," and then they were just like, just dancing, like just goofy, and he was just having this crazy time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, and I knew we were going to do this podcast, and I'm like, that's it right there. That's it, like just their celebration, being goofy and just embracing the moment.
One thing I've recently been really inspired to explore is beyond the techniques. So ballet technique is very codified. It's hundreds of years old. You do this, you do this, you do this, and that's how you do every class. I'm more interested in guiding people to find their own movement voices. I've started an improvisation choreography class with youth at Central Studio, and the kids eat it up. Especially when they're done with school all day, the teachers have told them what to do, what homework you have. This is a moment where we take the first 5 minutes of class, okay, connect with your body. What was today? How is that affecting you today? Don't judge it. Don't be mad or happy about it. Just like that is what it is. And they get to create and find their own voice. So that is something I'm really excited to start formulating and getting plugged into the community, not just at Central Studio, but I would love to do that anywhere. And you don't need, all I need is a boombox.
Yeah.
I can go into the park.
Exactly.
So dance is so easy to get plugged into. It has been a celebratory activity since the beginning of humans. So I believe in dance. I believe in all the arts.
Wow. Awesome. Well, man, we could go on for a long time here talking, but you've been listening to Paige Walden-Johnson with CommUNITY Arts STL, kind of sharing her knowledge about dance in general, but also about her nonprofit and the great strides you guys have been making already. And I'm excited to see where you guys will go, hoping for future partnership ourselves, figuring out how we can bridge some of these gaps and help people. But yeah, some amazing programs you guys got going on, and I'm so glad to hear Rain's doing better as well too. That was a cool update you were able to give on her performance, and it's a pleasure meeting you today. So if anybody's wanting to contact you, what would be the best way to try to contact you?
Our website is a great place to go, www.communityartsstl.org. You can join our newsletter, find us on Facebook, Instagram, or email me directly. The email is on the website. And if you want to partner, volunteer, anything, want to learn more, want to have coffee, I'm available to listen.
Awesome. Well, Paige, thank you very much for being on Mental Health Matters. And until next time, this is Tom Duff, Mental Health Matters, St. Louis Counseling. Check us out, stlouiscounseling.org. See ya.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.